I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. So tell me, what are you gonna do now, wizard?
What are you going to do now, wizard? That'll do it.
We might be the very definition of the pen being mightier than the sword, and certainly we're nerds with our noses stuck in the books. When that book's a spell book, well, that can't be taken lightly. Wizards, especially at lower levels, aren't the masters of blowing things up like sorcerers can be, nor are they the powerhouses like barbarians. I see the wizard as a problem solver, only using magic or violence when they absolutely need to. But most of the time, our magic is there to engineer unusual solutions. Sure, a well placed fireball can certainly end encounters, but so can a seeming spell. But if we want to measure the power of the wizard, we must, like the other classes so far, look to the cantrip to get an idea of what they can do. So here are 5 cantrips. For the wizard in D&D 5e. They get 3 to start with and another at levels 4 and 10. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything also introduced the cantrip formula for spellbooks that lets a wizard change their cantrips with a long rest, so keep that in mind. Number 1, Firebolt. I know we talked about the wizard being problem solvers, but sometimes the easiest solution is setting something on fire. Firebolt is a simple, reliable cantrip. True, it does do fire damage, which is heavily resisted throughout D&D monsters, but it is important to realize that it's also probably one of the most useful energy types. In addition to being able to set things on fire, certain creatures, like mummies, are vulnerable to fire, meaning they take double damage. Others have regeneration that is switched off by fire, like trolls. This evocation cantrip takes an action to cast and has a range of 120 feet. So it's about as good as it gets when it comes to range. You make a ranged spell attack roll and do 1d10 fire damage on a hit. You add another damage die at levels 5, 11, and 17 as normal. So a 17th level wizard firebolt is going to do 4d10 fire damage. There's nothing crazy about this cantrip. It's just a good, reliable workhorse of a spell. Number 2, Mind Sliver. Do you want to take a shard of psychic energy and drive it into someone's brain? That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? If Firebolt is going to be our primary attack cantrip, we'll need a good backup for when red dragons come calling for their weekly allotment of sacrificial virgins. It's important to note that Firebolt is a ranged spell attack roll, which means if an enemy is within 5 feet of you, you will have disadvantage on attack rolls with this cantrip. That's where Mind Sliver is a good backup. It doesn't have an attack roll, but it's a saving throw. This enchantment cantrip takes an action to cast, has a range of 60 feet, and requires targets to pass an intelligence saving throw. Saving throw spells can be tricky to get through sometimes because creatures can have magic resistance, giving them advantage on those saving throws. They can also have legendary resistances, but I will say that if a creature wastes one of their legendary resistances on a cantrip, that's probably a win for you. But this cantrip targets intelligence saving throws, which is probably the weakest saving throw for most monsters. Should they fail their save, they'll take 1d6 psychic damage, with an extra die being added at the appropriate levels. That's not a lot of damage, but psychic damage is rarely resisted. But it's the next part that we really want. After a failed save, the target must subtract 1d4 from their next saving throw before the end of your next turn. So it could be the next spell you cast, or from a party member between your turns. For instance, if you hit them with Mind Sliver, and they fail their save, and then your cleric hits them with Whole Person, you have a much better chance of making that stick. There are very few ways to debuff saving throws in 5e, so that makes this cantrip fairly unique. It also only requires verbal components, which means as long as you're not gagged or silenced, you can cast this spell. All of this makes this spell good to use in melee, as well as a good combo spell with save or suck spells like Whole Person or Banishment. Number 3, Minor Illusion. This spell is not just for illusionists. Any wizard can use it to do a lot of tomfoolery. This illusion cantrip takes an action to cast, has a range of 30 feet, and lasts for a minute without concentration. And that's pretty rare. You can create a sound or an image of an object. This is a spell that can vary wildly in power based on what your DM allows. I encourage you to talk to your DM about their expectations. This isn't the time to spring weird uses of this spell on them. I will assume we're taking a pretty conservative use of minor illusion. So remember, it's sound or image, not both, unless you're an illusionist wizard. It can be just about any sound you want, from whisper to a scream. Your voice, someone else's voice, drums, thunder, whatever. The image, though, that's much more restrictive. It must be an object, and there's where the shenanigans often occur. A living creature is not an object, although a dead one is. So keep that in mind. You could try making a statue to fool others, but that would depend on your DM. My best advice is to be clear with your DM about your intent so that they can work with you to realize your plan. Minor illusion is one of those spells that really benefits from a creative mind. The illusion object can be 5 foot square, so not real big, but here's one of my fun uses. You sit down on the floor, hopefully making yourself small enough. Then cast the spell around you in the form of a crate or barrel, essentially hiding you. They would have to pass an investigation check to notice something amiss, if they even notice anything amiss at all. And obviously, any interactions with the illusion will reveal it to be fake. It's a restrictive spell, but there are many, many uses for it to fool your foes and create opportunities for your allies. Number 4, Chill Touch. I know we've already got 2 attack cantrips, but kind of like Mind Sliver, this cantrip is meant more for its tech abilities and less for the actual damage. This necromantic cantrip takes an action to cast, and despite what the title may suggest, does have a range of 120 feet. You create a skeletal hand near your target and drain the life from them. You make a ranged spell attack, and on a hit you do 1d8 necrotic damage, with the damage increasing at the appropriate levels. But it's this secondary effect that we're really here for. On a hit, the target can't regain hit points until the beginning of your next turn. So healing spells on the target will fail. If they have regeneration, it stops functioning. Any other hit point recovering abilities won't work for the next round. This secondary effect might not seem all that useful at lower levels, but at higher levels of play comes nigh essential. You will increasingly run into enemies that can regenerate wounds and are almost unkillable as long as they're regenerating or just have access to healing spells or items. Being able to shut that down can save the party regardless of how much damage you're actually doing. But wait, there's more. Any undead you hit with this cantrip has disadvantage on attack rolls against you until the end of your next turn. So you would be able to run past them and get protection on attacks of opportunity. And trust me, there are undead you really don't want touching you. And remember, to get these effects, you just have to land the attack. There's not any saving throw to this at all. So even if the undead is immune to the necrotic damage you're doing to it, it's still going to have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. And if it had any regeneration or healing abilities, like a vampire, it's not going to work. Number 5, Mage Hand. A floating hand that obeys your command feels like a prop from Disney. This cantrip will make another appearance later in the series, but for a class that operates best as a problem solver, it's a must. The 0th level conjuration spell takes an action to cast, has a range of 30 feet, and lasts for a minute without the need for concentration. You summon a visible spectral hand to serve you. You can use your action to do a number of things with it. Open unlocked doors and containers, manipulate an object, or empty a vial's contents. I don't see why the last one can't be pouring a potion down someone's throat, but check with your DM on that one. But you definitely can empty a vial of acid onto a chain holding a gate up. And anytime you do command the Mage Hand, you can simultaneously move it 30 feet. But the Mage Hand must stay within 30 feet of you, or else it will disappear. No, the hand can't attack in any way. It can only carry 10 pounds, and it can't activate magic items. So for something like potions, see your DM for clarifications. But it can open doors, flip switches, press buttons, all kinds of nifty things, especially if that thing is out of your reach. It can't do complex tasks like pick locks or just hunt traps. Stay tuned for a future video on that one. but it can appear outside the bars of your cell and pick up the keys so that you can get out. And because it only requires verbal and somatic components, you don't need to have your wand or spell component pouch or whatever on you. This spell is also one of those spells that can accomplish so much with creativity, but it does have its limits. Discuss with your DM what the expectations are, and don't try to surprise them with your tomfoolery and shenanigans. Explain your intent with this spell so that they can work with you to accomplish your goal. So that's our list of 5 cantrips for the wizard in D&D 5e. If you want more videos like this, then you're going to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button. Tell me what your favorite cantrips are for the wizard, and I'll see you in the parlor.